Manjoume is back with this amazing new Light and Darkness Dragon support that I'm very excited to show you guys, my new Light and Darkness Dragon Lord deck. It's really epic and it's actually a lot of fun, and this support is really surprisingly very good. So let's get right into it. So this deck obviously revolves around Light and Darkness Dragon Lord, which is the new Light and Darkness Dragon card based on the original and essentially does the same thing but slightly different. So first of all, it's a fusion monster that needs a level 8 light and a level 8 dark dragon monster. Must be fusion summoned, and while on the field it's also a dark attribute, which is basically the same as Light and Darkness Dragon, the original. And its effect is that once per chain, when a spell, trap card, or monster effect is activated, quick effect, this card loses exactly 1000 attack and defense, and if it does, negates the activation of the card or effect, which is a fantastic effect, just like Light and Darkness Dragon. It's really hard to get over because this card can negate 3 effects per turn, just like that, and you can't do anything to stop it. I mean, it's automatic, it does it by itself, which is really cool, but also the downside of the card. This card is very strong and very difficult to deal with, and if your opponent destroys it, if it's destroyed by an opponent's card, you can target a dragon monster in your graveyard and special summon it, which is just the icing on the cake. Unfortunately, it must be fusion summoned, so you can't special summon it, but it doesn't take up space in the deck. And the new support cards come with a couple cards that make this monster extremely easy to fusion summon. So let's take a look at those. We have Dark End Evaporation Dragon and Light End Sublimation Dragon. These are really cool. I just want to talk about these for a second because first of all, the artwork, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, is the same as it is in the manga. It's the same artwork for a Dark End Dragon and Light End Dragon that they have in the manga, which is really cool, and they're a lot more like their manga counterparts because they're effect monsters, they go in the main deck, they're not synchro monsters, which is really weird that Light End and Dark End are synchro monsters considering that they're from the GX Fusion era. So I don't know what Konami was thinking there, but now they've finally rectified that mistake with these new cards. And these cards are a lot easier to summon as well. So Dark End and Light End can both be special summoned by the same method from your hand by banishing a level 8 dragon monster from your extra deck. That is fantastic, really easy to summon these cards. Next, they have slightly weaker versions of their original effects, but are basically the same, so you know, it's generally just good to have these cards. Dark End Evaporation is you can target one other attack position monster on the field. This card loses 500 attack and defense and then destroy the targeted monster. And Light End Sublimation Dragon is when an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can make this card lose 500 attack and defense and then the opponent's monster loses 1500. Very reminiscent of their original effects, but yeah, slightly weaker. Original Dark End Dragon targets any monster your opponent controls and sends it to the graveyard rather than destroys. And Light End Dragon, its effect is at attack declaration if this card battles another monster, which I would actually say that the new Light End Sublimation Dragon is a little bit better than that effect because it's if your opponent attacks any of your monsters, which is a really cool effect, much more reminiscent of the manga, which is just a quick effect. The other thing I'd like to point out about these cards is that their names, Dark End Evaporation Dragon and Light End Sublimation Dragon, is a reference to their attack names in the manga, or was it their effect name? Either their attack or effect names was Shining Sublimation and Dark Evaporation, which I just think is really cool. The other effect of these cards is that each of them has this effect, is that during your main phase you can fusion summon one monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field as material. So obviously that gets us out our Light and Darkness Dragon Lord. If you have both of these or just one of these and the other attribute as a level 8 dragon monster, you can summon your Light and Darkness Dragon Lord. So that is the main strategy of the deck, is just to bust out one of these and go into your Light and Darkness Dragon Lord, which is, you know, negates everything. Fantastic card. Just be wary that it will negate your own cards as well, so do all your effects before summoning it, and then once it's out, just stop all your opponent's stuff, basically. The other additions that I've made to this deck just give it a little bit more support, but also I added a few cards that might not be optimal for the deck, but are Manjoume cards that he uses in the manga and also go towards summoning the original Light and Darkness Dragon. I wanted this deck to be able to summon the original monster because I think it's cool. I don't think we should sleep on him. And, you know, I just want it to be possible to bring him out, which it definitely is in this deck. Not only is there a lot of special summon capability in this deck to give you the necessary tributes for Light and Darkness Dragon, but we also have Wish Dragon and Samsara Dragon, both of which can be used as 2 tributes by their, you know, respective effects, and combining that with Shadow's Light, which if in the graveyard, you can banish it to get an extra normal summon of a light or dark monster. So that effect basically only really helps us for summoning Light and Darkness Dragon, and I just think it's really cool. Shadow's Light and Duality are both really fantastic cards in this deck because we can easily bust out a level 8 Light or Dark Dragon monster, which we can then use to summon their original counterparts, or we can use it to summon Void Ogre Dragon in the case of using Duality on Light and Supplementary Dragon. We can go into Void Ogre Dragon, which is another really good card for just negating your opponent's spell and trap cards, and that's always a good thing, right? It's a little bit better than Light End's attack reduction effect. Being able to negate cards is obviously really good. This deck runs a lot of level 8s, including a small bestial package, which has Magnamut, Druid's Worm, and 3 copies of Lubellion, along with Branded Regained. This allows us to have an extra level 8. Magnamut searches any dragon in our deck, which gets our combo going for the next turn, and Druid's Worm is just good for getting rid of our opponent's cards. These also allow us to go into Branded Regained, which we can search off of Lubellion's effect, and Branded Regained works extremely well in this deck because we often banish stuff from our extra deck with the effect of our Dark End and Light End dragons in order to summon them, which means Branded Regain can then be used to put the banished card back in our extra deck and then draw a card. Fantastic effect, and obviously also works with the Bestials. A couple other cards to point out is of course the new Knight Armed Dragon, which is not based on the Armed Dragons, but is actually based on the Armed Dragon, the Armored Dragon, which in the manga was just called Armored Dragon. Has nothing to do with the Armed Dragon cards, but is one of Manjoume's cards, so I think it's really cool that they retrained that. I think it's also related to his, he has Draconic Knight as well, so it's a bit of a combination of Armored Dragon and Draconic Knight, which I think is a really cool card, and just adds 2 of Manjoume's cards into one. This card works extremely well with the deck, as if you special summon a level 5 or higher dragon monster, you can special summon this card from your hand, and then if this card is special summoned, you can make its attribute and level become one of your banished dragon monsters. So you summon your Dark End, for example, by banishing Light End from your extra deck, then you can special summon Knight Armed Dragon and he becomes a level 8 light monster, allowing you to immediately go into your Light and Darkness Dragon Lord. The other thing is that his effect, when it's sent to the graveyard, you can target a dragon monster you control and it gains 1,000 attack, and neither player can activate cards or effects in response to this effect's activation. This is really good because it works with our Light and Darkness Dragon Lord, and obviously our Light and Darkness Dragons can't negate it because we can't activate effects in response to that effect's activation, giving it an extra 1,000 attack. Unfortunately, it only gives it a bonus attack and not defense, meaning you can still only use its effect 3 times because it has 3,000 defense, which is really sad. Dragon's Glory of Light and Dark is another new card, which is really cool. Does a similar thing, has 3 effects. One of them gives one of your dragon monsters attack equal to its level times 200. Another is that when a card or effect is activated that targets a dragon monster you control, negates the effect, great protection. And the first effect, which is most important, is you can shuffle a level 8 dragon monster from your hand into the deck and then add a level 8 dragon monster with a different attribute from your deck to your hand. This works really well if you don't have your Dark End, Light End, but you do have your Light and Darkness Dragon, your Lubellion, your Galactic Spiral Dragon, Burning Dragon. All these cards can be used, shuffle back, to get one of your combo starters, or if you've already got your Dragon Lord or whatever, you just don't want to go into them, maybe you want to go into the original Light and Darkness Dragon because you can do that as well. Burning Dragon is just another card that Manjoume uses in the manga, which is, I think, really cool card. Destroys spell and trap cards on the field and has its own special summon effect to bring it out nice and easily. Galactic Spiral Dragon can be special summoned from the graveyard very easily in this deck and can then be used to go into our rank 8 Xyz monsters. I've chosen a few rank 8 Xyz monsters, including a rank 9 as well, who can be summoned using a rank 8 galaxy monster, so either of these. These cards are all very easy to bring out and have their own fantastic effects. I wouldn't choose any of them in most situations over Light and Darkness Dragon Lord, but sometimes, you know, you can't summon this card, or sometimes these are just better, can go for an OTK, can get rid of our opponent's cards, so they're definitely fantastic cards to have. Alright, that is really all that needs to be said about this deck. There's only one real strategy, like I mentioned, Light End, Dark End, go into your Light and Darkness Dragon Lord, go with your Bestial package, or go into your Shadows Light Duality, can have a lot of cool plays as well, bringing out extra cards. Not a lot that you can do with this deck, but what you can do is very powerful, lots of negates, easy disruption, fantastic cards. Now check it out, because I'm about to show you how this deck looks when it's in action.